Welcome to back to the Senior Basketball Analyst. This is the Senior Basketball Analyst 2015 Draft coverage. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to do something a little different. And here, there's plenty of draft analysis, draft coverage. If you want to see that, you can get that pretty much on any website to varying degrees of quality. What I'm going to do is just cover the draft coverage itself. So talk about what was said, what was promoted, what was left off the table, and just some things I noticed that were important. First, I would say the coverage itself was actually good. I would like to see the draft format changed. I think that it's too long and drawn out, and it's probably due to TV reasons and things like that. It's probably all business. But the draft actually would be an entertaining product if they should put you on the clock for a minute. That's it. 1 minute, maybe 30 seconds. I would put a clock on it that was almost like a shot clock. They already know who they're going to draft. These discussions have already been had for weeks and weeks and weeks. There's no reason to sit around talking about it all day. There really isn't. And what it leads to is comments like this. And this is overall, Jay Billis was really good, I thought, overall. He wasn't to Jalen Rose's level, but he's not a Jalen Rose quality analyst. Jalen is probably I've said it before, he's probably the best going. But Jay Billis, said this regarding Jahlil Okafor. His hands are huge. He handles the ball like a grapefruit. He can handle it. He can put it on the deck. He can dribble very, very effectively. That was 5 sentences to say one thing. And I legitimately feel like they're in his ear and somebody's telling him to stretch and they don't have anything to say right now, so they're just trying to fill time. And that's what I think that kind of stuff leads to. And that's why all you had to do was say, dude's a good ball handler for a center. That's all you had to do. And they're showing the highlights of him, handling the ball in various situations on the court, whether it be out all the way to the arc, in the post. And then they actually showed one where he got doubled in the post and managed to dribble his way out of it back to the arc and then make a pretty good pass, a penetrating pass that ended up leading to a basket later. So they were showing this at the time. There was no reason for him to beat that into the ground. And that kind of stuff happens all the time on TV. And I think it's because they're trying to fill time and they could make the draft a worthwhile product. The fact of the matter is the draft is pretty pointless. Most of these guys are not going to end up being rotation players, and only a few of them are going to be impact players and players that anybody is really paying attention to throughout the course of their career. Very few end up being that. And the draft is getting progressively worse for reasons that we're going to go over in terms of who is being drafted. It's getting progressively worse as the years go on. And we get to that very early in the lottery, but I'm going to go step by step as in the order that I saw these things. The second thing that jumped out at me was, when they were showing the Timberwolves, they showed the salaries, which the NBA shouldn't do that. Don't show the salaries because, for one thing, sports coverage, and this is about the people covering it. This is why this is the way it is. You ever notice how nobody ever says when they're watching a movie, this actor makes X? Never. You never hear that. No matter how you could go see that bomb Aloha and nobody's wondering why all these people are making millions of dollars to basically be similar to people that work in your office and your neighbors. There's nothing special about Bradley Cooper or whoever else was in that movie. There's nothing special about these people. They're just like people yet they're making millions of dollars to do something and not even do it well. And nobody seems to mind. But with professional athletes, people are always questioning what they make. And the reason is because of the reporters. The reporters have put that out into the lexicon that if a guy isn't playing great at this very moment, all of a sudden we have to go, why is this guy a millionaire? Well, the reason he's a millionaire is because hundreds of thousands of people, or millions of people, pack arenas all over the country and tune in on their TVs and their mobile devices to see this person perform. It's obvious. It's obvious. NFL, NBA, these are billion-dollar operations. They certainly aren't bomb movie films that no one really saw, right? Or bomb feature films, I should say. So that's why. And the NBA, when they're doing their own draft, they should never put the salaries up because of it. Here's a prime example. I'm looking at it and I said, they showed the Timberwolves. I said, oh my goodness, Ricky Rubio makes 12.7 million per year. That's scary. That's a scary thought given there's a salary cap. That's that's a high-end point guard pay for a guy that can't score or defend his position. That's a lot of money. So, and it's hurting their team that they're paying someone like that who also can't stay healthy. So he's never done anything to earn that money, and it jumps out at you because they shouldn't have told you that. I didn't realize he was getting paid that much. I should have said I didn't realize it. I remember he got new paper, but I don't think about it because it really doesn't matter from a fan perspective, from an entertainment perspective. It really doesn't matter what the player is making. So the NBA to me is making a mistake when they do that. And they didn't do it much throughout the broadcast, but that was a time early on where they did it for especially a bad team like the Timberwolves. Don't show what anybody's making because everybody looks overpaid on that team. Um, I also noticed this. You know, here's the thing: Kentucky had what was widely regarded as the most talented team in the league in college basketball, and they were. I mean, nobody disputes that really. What happened though is because of that, Rick Pitino played all these dudes half the game. They didn't have anybody really shouldering a heavy load on that team. So Carl Anthony Town played 21 minutes a game. So his numbers, well, that's part of the reason his numbers aren't very good. There's nothing special about his numbers. So what they did was they were showing you his per 40-minute numbers. First of all, who minutes a game? Nobody. People don't really play 40 minutes a game in the NBA by and large. The famous Jimmy Butler who runs 2.5 miles a game because Tom Thibodeau runs people to their legs break. See Luol Deng for that. Jimmy Butler played 38.7 minutes a game. I'm almost certain he led the league in minutes. I didn't really check, but I wasn't looking for it. But I'm almost certain he led the league in minutes at 38.7. So no one plays 40 minutes a game, unless it's LeBron in the playoffs. But in the regular season, no one's going to play that much. They do a 30. I made a mistake. It's Calipari, my mistake. Anyway, they do a funny thing in NCAA in the NBA. They show per 36-minute production, and that's supposed to be basically a mark of a starter's minutes. I don't think that's worthwhile because the more you play a person, the more they have to conserve energy, the more they get tired. It's not really worthwhile to me to say, man, if we played him 36 minutes, then he'd be doing this. Would he? You don't know. You have to play him 36 minutes to see if he can shoulder that load, not get injured, not get in foul trouble, etc. So I don't think it's that worthwhile stat anyway, but especially showing a per 40-minute stat. They did that a couple of times through the night, but Town was the first guy they did it with. And that's just silly. That's silly to do that, and they shouldn't show you that because it's not a worthwhile statistic at all, and especially since he doesn't play in college anymore. Now he's going to the NBA, so now that statistic is completely useless. You'll never see it again, and it will never matter again. So why even show it? In then I saw this, and they were showing, and I looked it up at this time before he got drafted. There's a kid named Emmanuel Mudiay that was a big time prep prospect last year or the year before last. And instead of going to, I believe they said he was going to go to SBA. It doesn't matter. He can go. When instead of there, he went to go to play in China. This is an interesting dynamic because if you remember, Brandon Jennings went to Italy to play. If you remember, instead of going to play in the NCAA, he went to Italy to get paid, where they benched him. Why you with waste American. For those of you that don't know about international basketball, almost every non-American league in the world has a 2-player cap on the number of American players that can play. That, because you may wonder, you may like know a guy that's a really good basketball player, and you may wonder why he isn't playing in Europe. He's competing against other Americans for those spots. It's not like a French team can just fill their roster with Americans. If they they would and win the league that way. They have caps. That's also why it makes what the NBA does with its pro-international player rules, it makes it pretty disgraceful. Because what it's doing is it's making such that international players have a leg up in both places. In the NBA, and this is the American League. For those of you that don't know, a prep kid can't come out of high school anymore and go straight to the NBA. That's why you see players do what Moutier did. An international player could come into the NBA at 18. He didn't have to play. And what makes it so backwards is these international guys don't have an American training ground to play in. The prep kids these guys are growing up with the express purpose of playing in the NBA. The notion that LeBron wasn't ready for the NBA is ridiculous. They had an almost pro-style season, preparing him, TV games, all of that, preparing you for the NBA. The notion that a player from another country is more capable and better prepared for the NBA is just silly. It's just false on his face. So to get to this Moutier kid, obviously none of us have seen him play. We don't get Guangdong, I believe is how you pronounce it, Tigers games in the NBA or in the United States. We don't get those games, so we didn't see him play. They put up his stats. He was 18-6, which sounds impressive for a second. But then when you watch the highlights and watch the way these guys play defense, not impressive at all. And then I'll take it a step further. E. Jianlian averages 28 and 11 for the Guangdong Tigers. If you've ever seen E. Jianlian play, you know he's terrible. He's playing the NBA. He's horrible at basketball. He's getting 28 and 11. E. Jianlian couldn't get 28 and 11 in a good high school league. I'm telling you he couldn't. He's not good. The notion that we're pretending here in the United States that we think these leagues are good, it's all pretend. Everybody knows these leagues are poor. That's why they put up a graphic, and the graphic was wrong, by the way, that only 3 international players had ever been All-Stars. That's not true. Because Ginobili wasn't listed, and I'm almost certain Ginobili went to an All-Star game, but that's not true. And then it also, too, I think they weren't counting anybody that had any American amateur experience. So a guy like Marc Gasol doesn't count because he went to high school in the United States. But Marc Gasol, for all intents and purposes, is a Spaniard, like his brother Pau. So this is all amorphous, and by the way, completely irrelevant. This goes to the way that Americans also frame everything. They frame everything in these racial and geographical terms when it's all irrelevant. What should matter is, can the guy play or not? And the reason I'm talking about, the reason why I'm linking this all to Moutier and putting it all on his drafting, if Moutier had went to SMU, he may not have been a lottery pick. I saw all these point guards drop below him that showed out not only throughout the course of the season in the NCAA, but in the NCAA tournament. The biggest amateur tournament. It's in fact, short of an Olympic event, it is the biggest amateur tournament there is. We put all of this emphasis on it. People have actually do productivity studies on their workplaces regarding the NCAA tournament and how people stop working and they change their internet. I work in IT, so I know companies change their internet policies only during March Madness for this, because it's so important in the United States and so important worldwide. And then what do? Then anybody that wasn't the elite of the elite, we kick them down the road for some guy that played in some league no one's ever heard of. and it's counterproductive, it's backwards, it's hurting the league, and it's finally getting to the point where it has damaged the league's quality. Larry Brown hit me to this last year, but I'll talk about this year. 20 and 10 players have become non-existent in the NBA. It's become a thing basically nobody can do because the league is just not very good anymore. Relatively speaking, and especially given the quality of the talent level in terms of, you know, running speeds and leaping ability, it's really gotten way off track. It's really gotten way off track. And this year, right now, there were 3 20 and 10 guys. DMC, DeMarcus Cousins, LaMarcus Aldridge, and there was one more guy. Oh, and Anthony Davis. Those were the 3. Obviously, all centers. Well, LaMarcus Aldridge is a power forward, but 2 centers and a power forward. These are the only 20 and 10 players in the entire league. By the way, Marc Gasol, though, was your first team All-NBA center. Come on, man. Come on. You know, Anthony Davis, by the way, in the 4 games when they got swept in the playoffs, he averaged 35 and 11. He shot 45% from the field. He shot 52% from the field. So, you know, like 3 blocks and 2 steals. So the notion that Marc Gasol is the best center in the NBA, I don't know why anyone would say it. That's just a silly, silly thing to say. If you can tell which numbers are larger than other numbers, that's all you have to be able to do. You don't have to be able to actually do math. Just tell which numbers are larger than others. You know that's not true. But I think that what you're going to see going forward is you're going to see more people doing what Moutier did and doing what Brandon Jennings did, because I might as well get paid and gamble on that than go into the NCAA tournament and go into the NCAA and no one even respects it anyway. These guys go and play all that college basketball. Look at a guy like Goon Green. 4 years of college basketball, and everybody wants to tout that. He was drafted in the 2nd round. He has to wait until his contract's up to get paid. There is no incentive for the player to go in. They certainly aren't learning anything about the NBA game. That stuff is nonsense relative to it's not played the same way as the NBA game. So you're not learning anything that's going to help them down the line anyway. Ask LeBron James about that. Ask Carmelo Anthony about that. Carmelo Anthony played 1 year of college. Ask Kevin Garnett. Ask Amari Stoudemire. Ask any of these guys. What would college have done for you? Come on, nothing basketball related. So that's what I think about the NCAA. You know, they did a little piece on, you know, to keep with this international theme they were doing. Top 3 international players should be gone by the 8th pick. Given the success of international players in the NBA, why? Why would they be gone? And you know what? They were flying off the board. And I will get to this in a moment, so I'm going to jump ahead to D'Angelo Russell just to say that Jalen was doing these comps, you know, comparing a draftee to a pro player. Every time I've ever seen this my entire life, it was terrible. Jalen did a really good job of it. He compared the guy to somebody that actually is both athletically and from a skill set perspective comparable to the guy that was being drafted. He did a really good job. The Lenny Wilkens one was funny. Lenny Wilkens is a retired Hall of Fame, both Hall of Fame player and coach. One of the greatest NBA anything of all time, a legend. And man, they were showing those clips of Lenny Wilkens. Lenny Wilkens drives to the basket, jumping about this high off the ground, and then doing like this and finger rolling on people. And it was just interesting to see how back at that time, that was like amazing stuff. And like now, you would see a dude like playing like that, and you go, man, that guy is really awkward and bad, right? But that just made me laugh. But they went into then they went into some ridiculous goofy math, and they did this boom or bust chance statistical analysis, and they said, you know, this player has a 15% chance of boom and a 40% chance of bust. Based on what? Seriously, this is another thing where I would like to see math behind it. Like, what are you basing that on? That's to me, that's a way to give some guy a job you just feel like giving a job to and waste airtime. that has no value, none. I'm not gonna break it down because there's nothing to break down. It's just people throwing out arbitrary numbers. They probably do have some kind of algorithm they worked out that is dumb, like PER or any of that other garbage. You say, Daryl, why do you hate PER so much? One year, PER said that Emmanuel Ginobili was the best player in the league. So there you go. That's what PER is worth. Come on. And you know who was in the league at the time? Shaq. This is a throw a name out there, right? Come on. Anyway, now here's where the draft went off the rails. We know the New York Knicks struggles. Every basketball fan in the country does because the New York Knicks are in New York. It's a historic franchise right in the center of the media capital of the world. So we all know the struggles in New York. We all know that Phil Jackson was hired to do a job that he probably can't do and turn this team around. Phil Jackson, we're gonna do more about Phil Jackson, later on in the summer, as one of our off-season specials. We're gonna talk some about Phil Jackson. And, stuff always gets overblown. And Phil Jackson, I never saw, for example, Phil Jackson win a championship without having way more talent than the next closest team. That doesn't mean Phil Jackson can't coach. It just means that Phil Jackson's not doing something magical that other coaches can't do. If you come out on the basketball court and you have Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, you're going to win 70 games. It doesn't really matter what the coach does after that, unless he's an idiot. If he's an idiot, fine. But as long as that coach has legitimate playbook in place, preaches and works on rotations in practice, those guys are going to choke people to death defensively and score 110 points. Like, he's not doing anything spectacular by being able to win championships with that. Winning championships with Kobe and Shaq at that time in the NBA, they were the favorite to win the title every year. Like, I know they won the title, right? So the Knicks get this bright idea, though, and Phil Jackson, for the record, does have ties to New York. He did play there, very poorly, but he did play in the NBA for the New York Knicks. And they signed him to run their team, run their organization, and bring them out of the doldrums that really ownership created. They have one of the dumbest owners in professional sports. And no matter who's in charge of the team, from a player personnel perspective, from a coaching perspective, they can't win. They can't win because their owner's a clown. But they bring Phil Jackson in, and what does Phil Jackson know about running this stuff? And does he have the energy to put the homework in? He's an old man. Let's face it, he's old. Does he have all that? So far, no. The Derek Fisher hire just was, again, he had two guys that he wanted to hire, Fisher and Kerr. Neither one of them have ever been head coaches. Want to hire a real coach, for starters? Then he drafts a guy with the number 4 pick named Kristaps Porzingis. And the fans booed, and rightfully so. The draft was being filmed. It was taking place in Brooklyn. Not a New York Knicks fans in the building, and they booed loudly, and they should have. That is an absurd pick. And I was waiting. I was waiting to get angry at the broadcasters. But Jay Williams, Jalen Rose, and Jay Billis all panned it. All panned it, and rightfully so. And here's the thing. You know what? I'll just crib Jalen Rose. I'll just crib what he said. This team has not won a championship in decades. This franchise is a historic franchise. They deserve better. Fans deserve better. For you to be drafting someone that everybody believes is 3 to 4 years away from being ready to play NBA basketball, for you to draft a guy like that with a lottery pick, with a top 5 pick, is absurd. It's flat out absurd. You hopped, skipped, and jumped over a dozen proven difference makers, guys could start right now in the NBA. not necessarily start and be great, but can start. Guys with NBA physicality, NBA skill sets. This dude is a horse player that happens to be 7 feet tall. He has no muscle tone. Like, we're looking at the dude, and it's like, this dude won't be able to get a board because he won't be able to hold his ground. And he hasn't proven that he can because he's playing in some league. I saw the guy and I said, looks like Andres Biedrins to me. And Andres Biedrins decided after 4 or 5 years he didn't even want to play NBA basketball anymore and started airballing free throws. This pick makes no sense. And NBA teams do this all the time. NBA teams did this lower in the draft where they just threw a pick away. Threw a pick away on a guy who probably will not report to camp in 2015. But why would you do that with such a high pick when, again, there were plenty of difference makers on the table? And a couple of people said, hey, man, they harkened back to horrible drafts where all kinds of, I heard Darko's name came up, which was very apt. I heard that come up. We should never forget Darko was taken ahead of Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade. I believe Chris Bosh was in that draft too. And these guys were all proven NCAA killers, okay? And what do? You go and grab some guy you go and scour the globe to find a guy that can't play. He can't play basketball. So that Chris, and you've been hearing it. If you've been looking in other places in the media, it was such a bad pick. I was listening to music and Pete Rock said, I don't want to talk. They asked somebody, said, I don't want to talk about it. You're hearing it in places where they're not even supposed to be talking about basketball. People are like, what did the Knicks just do? Why did they do that? And to get back to Jalen Rose with doing good comps, Willie Cauley-Stein, they showed a great, and I don't know if Jalen Rose is in charge of that or production. I don't know the TV business well enough to know, but I can just tell you what I saw as a fan and watching the broadcast. They were comparing Willie Cauley-Stein to Tyson Chandler, which I think is a really good comp. I think that's a very good comp. By the way, if you remember that, Tyson Chandler was getting a lot of comps to Kevin Garnett back when he came out, which made no sense. None at all. For various reasons. We'll probably do a Kevin Garnett show down the line and I'll explain that. But that made no sense. But now that their career is shaken out, you can tell how stupid that was. Willie Cauley-Stein, though, is like Tyson Chandler. Really good comparison. What they showed was they had this great they showed this great highlight where they inbounded the ball, the opponent inbounded the ball to a guard, and Cauley-Stein was part of a trap. Well, the trap kind of broke down, and he had to, haul it down the court and try to make sure that the guard didn't get by him. He ran with the guy step for step the entire length of the court and made sure he was not able to turn the corner and get to the basket. And he ended up about 18 feet away on the sideline with no shot, and they ended up just bringing it back out and setting up. A 7-footer that can run the floor like that defensively and get into a stance and slide his feet. That kid has tremendous defensive footwork, tremendous athletic ability. That will translate to the NBA. It was a great highlight. And they had a little like gold ring around him, like when you play in a game or something. They had a gold ring around Cauley-Stein's feet as they followed him down the court. It was a great highlight. It was really worthwhile because it showed you something that's going to translate to the NBA. That's the kind of footwork that can lead Cauley-Stein to being a great pick and roll defender like Tyson Chandler. That was fantastic. It was fantastic, and I really, really liked that. We get to, I'm going to talk only briefly about it. There's a lot of coverage going around, snakes in the grass and all that stuff. I'm not going to cover it that much, but Sacramento really blew it. They blew it. I don't know what they did. I don't know what kind of conversations they had with Carl when they hired him. But for it to get out that he's going behind the scenes and trying to trade DeMarcus Cousins, and now you're basically stuck moving him now. You're not going to be able to get value back for this guy. As I said earlier, he's one of the only 20 and 10 players in the league. Marcus Cousins was 24 and 12.7 last year. He's 24 and 13. Come on, man. Come on, man. You can't do that. You can't do that. And this is a team, the Sacramento, this is a franchise. It's just a dead franchise. They're just losers, man. They're losers. And this kind of stuff is going to cause you to continue to be losers. So I just wanted to talk about that just briefly. They're not going to get value back for DeMarcus Cousins. Whoever does get DeMarcus Cousins as a franchise center, I think Cousins is 24 years old. Stupid. Just to talk about drafting, Frank Kaminsky. Frank Kaminsky was a really good college player, And one of the things I heard about him though is, during the course of draft coverage, he has a negative wingspan, and I had to think about that for a second. What does that even mean? Because I never heard that. I never heard that term. Negative wingspan means that his wingspan is shorter than his height. That is no good. That's no good at the NBA level. That means he's not 7 feet tall, essentially. Because really, and what the NBA really should start doing is they start measuring height by how high you can reach. That's really what they should measure. Measuring how high your head is off the ground. Well, if you have a really long neck and short arms like Frank Kaminsky, reaching up, you ain't that tall. So they really should measure standing reach and use that as the height. I don't know why they don't do it, but they don't. But Frank Kaminsky may be able to play in the NBA. Jalen Rose did a good comp to him compared to Ryan Anderson. A guy that can hit threes but isn't a strong rebounder, isn't a strong player, period, and can't guard his man. Why Charlotte? I don't know what Jordan is doing 90% of the time. This is just another case. I don't know what he's doing. You just traded for Spencer Hawes. Another guy like this who can't help anybody win, by the way. We saw the Clippers signed him, and they couldn't wait to get rid of him because he can't help you win games. He can't. Spencer Hawes can't go into a playoff game and give you anything. Nothing. They have a guy just like that already. I don't know why you're drafting Frank Kaminsky. That was a weird place for him to go in the draft. That's just what I thought. I didn't see the point in going to that team. Finally, the last thing I'll cover is, and the analyst blew up my phone as soon as it happened. Justice Winslow going to the Heat. And as soon as it happened, I said, this reminds me of Pat Riley drafting Dwayne Wade and laughing at everybody. And they asked him, I'll never forget it. They asked him on the broadcast, well, you already have Eddie Jones as shooting guard. What are you going to do with Wade? And Pat Riley laughed. And he said, I don't know. I'll play him at point guard or something. It was beautiful. It was beautiful because Wade has obviously turned into a Hall of Fame combo guard, mainly a two, but he can fill in at the one and one of the best defenders at his position of all time. He's top 5 shooting guard. He's a top 5 shooting guard. Where he falls in there is up for debate, but he's one of the greatest of all time. Very similar to, obviously, his hometown hero growing up, Michael Jordan. Very similar in the way he gets it done in terms of a shooting guard that is a committed defender, will block shots, has a nice post game, does a lot of damage in the mid-range, not really an outside shooter, mid-range, taking the ball hard to the basket. Very not similar in aesthetics to Jordan, similar in style to Michael Jordan. Or not style, similar in production, in the way that he gets in the way he produces. So this is Pat Riley clowning everybody again. He really is. He's clowning everybody again. And I saw the rumor, and it's not that relevant, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I saw a rumor that, the Celtics tried tried desperately to get to the ninth pick so they could get Winslow, and they were going to make a deal for Frank Kaminsky, and or basically I should say, I'm sorry, they wanted Kaminsky. They were going to give Charlotte the ninth pick. In the ninth pick, Charlotte could have taken Winslow instead of Kaminsky, who Winslow has star potential. That's Jordan messing up again, man. He's just messing up. He's just messing up all over the place. And for the Heat, I'm going to tell you like this. The Heat, very early on, I'm going to make a prediction. The Heat have an opportunity to win, to go to the finals. They have an opportunity. That starting lineup, they're going to, as long as the starting lineup stays as long as they can, make a deal and keep Dragic as their point guard. They're going to have Dragic, Wade, Luol Deng, Chris Bosh, and Hassan Whiteside, and then adding Justice Winslow to the mix. That's a pretty good roster. Given today's standards, it's a pretty good roster. That's a roster that could challenge Cleveland. Really is. Hassan Whiteside is going to have a year under his belt. That dude is a straight up killer at the center position. He's one of the best centers in the league. We know Chris Bosh. We know Dwayne Wade. Luol Deng is still rock solid at the three. Dragic, real nice point guard. And that roster can make up for a lot of his defensive deficiencies. So, that's a good roster, man. That's a really good starting lineup. That's one of the better starting lineups in the league. It's complete, man. It's complete. Everybody fills their role and can play their position very well. They're not going to have any trouble guarding centers, or they may have some trouble with defense at the point of attack. So we'll see how they can work that out. But it's a very complete roster with very little weaknesses. Actually, their biggest weakness is age and injury. We got to see if Chris Bosh and Wade can finish the season. So overall, as I said at the start of the show, the draft coverage was good. I thought it was good. I thought they gave you good breakdowns of the players. I didn't see any hyperbolic, absurd predictions on players that really aren't very good. It was very tempered, rational coverage. And I thought all three guys, Jalen, Jay Williams, and Jay Billis, did a really nice job. And I thought overall they kept the junk to a minimum. The stats and stuff I pointed out that were silly that they didn't do that all the time. And I really do feel like a lot of it they were doing just to fill time when they didn't have anything else to say at the moment, because a lot of this stuff there isn't a lot to say about, man. These are kids. They're going to become men. All kinds of things happen to a guy between his 20th birthday, so to speak, roughly his 20th birthday and his 25th birthday when he's entering into his prime. A lot of things happen to a player. So you don't know. You don't know. Russell Westbrook led the league in scoring this year. He was a lottery pick, but people didn't think that much of him coming out. And a lot of it was, what position is he going to play? You don't know. Nobody did. Nobody thought he'd lead the league in scoring. Nobody did, especially given that he's not a good shooter. So people say he's 6'3", he can't shoot. How's he going to lead the league in scoring? You look up and you have a Iverson-esque season out of the guy. Who knew, right? So you can see the talent, look at the skill set, but really a lot of it is taking educated guesses. And frankly, it's not that important. They could not cover the draft at all. And it really matters. It really would. Let's just watch the games when the season starts. We'll see what happens. In Chicago here, this Doug McDermott guy, he led the NCAA in scoring. Look up, Duke can't even crack rotation because he's terrible. It's terrible at basketball. His dad is calling the Bulls and asking them why they're not playing his son. It's not a good look, man. So anyway, that's the NBA 2015 draft coverage from the Senior Basketball Analyst. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And you know that.